Welcome to the course. Today we will look at the beginning of this course. We are looking at basics of language science. Today I want to introduce to you some of the concepts that we will use in this course and some of the ways in which we will look at various aspects in this course. So, I want to take you through the rationale of the course, that is, why study language? What is the relevance of language in our lives? And how is it connected with everything else that we do? In short, we want to know why this course and what is the relevance and rationale of this course, that is, a course on study of language. As I have introduced to you so far in this course, that we are going to look at various components of language. We will start with those things one by one. But before that, I thought it is important for you to know why you must take this course and what is there for you to look forward to in this course. So, understanding rationale of everything that you do is important for all of us. We must know why we do what we are doing and why we must know such things about what we are doing. This is an important aspect for all of us, and that we need to understand carefully. In the context of this course, it is even more important. And as we move forward in this course, you will see the relevance of what I am saying. So, let me start with this part. What is language and why we must study language? You see, language is a very unique human capacity. It is only humans as a species that use language, meaning the language that we are talking about. We are talking about the language that humans speak. And as far as our knowledge of humans go, we know that only humans speak language. This is not to claim that other species do not have communication systems. I want to rule this possibility out right away. You may have several questions in your mind after I say that only humans use language. You may come up with a question that do animals not have language? Do people who can't speak because of certain kind of disability not have language? To begin with, we are talking about language that people speak. And therefore, in such a way, in such a sense, language is a unique and fascinating human capacity. We speak language, but all of us do not speak the same language. A lot of times, people say language is important and language is very important because it helps us communicate, which is very much true. But look at the fact that if language and if the purpose of language, function of language was only to communicate, would it not be easier for all of us that we spoke same language all over the world, which will be much easier for communication? Why do we not speak same language all over the world? In other words, why people in different parts of the world speak different languages? That is the primary point which brings our attention to language. At the same time, the associated point with that is people do speak different languages, but people speak language. And we don't even know the total number of languages spoken all over the world. But we know that people speak and people speak language. So, we need to pay attention to that. It is only language which defines our being. Now, turn your attention to what we do with language. It will be easier for us to think about the importance and significance of language when we start looking at what is it that we cannot do without language. What can we do and what can we not do without language? Think about every domain of your life and see where language is important and where language is not important. We may do everything. We may do different things in our lives. We may study different things in our lives. We work differently. We think differently. We live differently. But we use language in all such domains. We use language for our studies. We use language for talking to others. We use language for reading. If you start making a list of things, you will find there is almost nothing where we do not use language. More importantly, this brings us to the point that can we think without language? When we are not talking to anyone else, we are quiet and we are just thinking. That is, in a way, we can say we are talking to ourselves. But my question for you to think is, do we need language for thinking? When we talk to ourselves, do we need language? Or do we not need language for thinking? You will be surprised to see that you need language to talk to yourself also. In the same way that you need language to talk to others. Such is the relevance of language in all our domains of life. We practically can't do many things without language. We need to communicate. We need to tell people about how we think. And only when we communicate, we do so many things in the world. So language becomes prerequisite for our existence and everything that we do. I leave this point right here for you to think more about it. We can't stop at any point. And please understand that humans' interest in the study of language is not new. Humans' interest is as old. Humans' interest in the study of language is almost as ancient as human existence itself. In ancient period also, I can talk about a particular instance that approximately 2,500 years ago, 2,500 years from now, almost 2,500 years ago, there was a very active school of study of language. It is called Paninian school. It is known that Panini studied Sanskrit language. But if you look at what Panini really studied, Panini studied language as science. Panini talked about mechanism of sound production. Panini talked about arrangement of word formation. Panini talked about underlying principles of sentence formation. Panini talked about underlying principles of meaning formation. And those parts of his study was relevant and is relevant to the languages that we don't even know the names of. Think about the names of languages that we speak in our country. We speak just so many languages. In a totally different class, I'll talk about how many languages we speak and what are the languages that we speak. But right today, I'm only asking you to think about how many languages we speak. The principles that Panini discovered 2500 years ago are applicable to all those languages which did not even exist during the time Panini studied these things. One of the most famous book, it's a very short book, which is Panini's contribution to the study of language, is called Ashtadhyayi. In short, Hindi did not exist during the time when Panini lived, and almost everything that Panini was talking about applies to Hindi as well. So, what Panini actually studied was science of language. In that context, we can say humans' interest in the study of language is very old. People studying various different things like history, sociology, philosophy, mathematics, biology, and to the modern days, computer science. All types of scholars from different domains have been interested in language, and that makes language a very interesting object of study. At the same time, you can see that people at different stages want to learn different languages, and we need to know what is it that helps us learn a language. For that also, we need to know what is it that we call language. And in this course, we are going to look at all these things in a systematic way which helps us understand language, and therefore we call this course Basics of Language Science. So that's that is one small rationale that I wanted to discuss with you, that is important for us to know why this course and what is this course about. We are going to look at language as a scientific object of inquiry, as I have told you earlier. Just now I talked about language. You see, there is a difference between language and languages. When we say language, we are talking about the underlying system of language. When we are talking about languages, we are talking about examples of those. So, when we name languages like English, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Bengali, Punjabi, Hindi, these are the names of languages. So, these names are languages, and when we talk about it, we talk about language, and when we say language, we are talking about underlying system, underlying principles of language. So, we are talking about that language, and we are going to look at that as a scientific object of inquiry. So, what is it that we mean by scientific inquiry? When we say linguistics, we say linguistics is the scientific study of language. What is scientific about study? I'll discuss that with you so that we understand with clarity two things today: language and what is scientific about the study. So, in this course will also demonstrate how language is inbuilt in humans and how learning is effortless for you. That is about acquisition of language. It will describe language as a social construct and marker of our identity too. You understand, language is a very important marker of our identity. We define ourselves with the language that we speak. Many a times, the name of the language that we speak and name of our cultural identity is the same. So when I speak Tamil, I am a speaker of Tamil and I belong to Tamil culture. So Tamil is not just name of a language, it's name of the whole being. Tamil is the name of Tamil culture. At the same time, it is name of the language that people of a particular culture and community speak. So is true for almost all languages like Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Bengali, Punjabi, Gujarati, and many of them, Maithili, Bhojpuri, Assamese, Manipuri, Naga, Mizo. Take any language, it applies to that. So, language is a very important marker of our identity, just like religion and many other things. So, there are various different dimensions of language that we need to study. At the same time, language is learned in just one way. No matter which language we speak, the process of learning is the same. And we don't have a choice about learning. The choice is governed by the languages spoken in our immediate society. Think about it. As a child, can we decide, or as a grown-up person, can we decide for our children that we will only want our children to learn language X, Y, and Z and not A, B, and C? This option is not available to us. So, choice of language that we learn is governed by immediate society, that is, languages spoken in our immediate society. A child is only going to learn the language that is spoken in her immediate society. So, a child born in Chennai is highly likely to be speaking Tamil and not Punjabi or Kashmiri. That's the purpose. That's the point that I'm trying to make, that we don't have a choice. We don't have an option to pick from. So it's a very important marker of our identity, and learning, acquisition of language is something very different that we need to look at separately. So this course has components which will take you through all these things, and it will help us understand the computation of these aspects and notions that we have about language in our mind, and it will also help us see how they follow. So when you look at it, there are three important aspects of language. One is about one particular aspect is important to know, that is, how do we acquire it? So acquisition is an important aspect of language. Structure, that is, how various components combine together to make a sentence. This is called structure. How various sounds combine together to make a word. How words combine together to make a word. What do they combine with? How do they combine? These are the parts of a study which fall in structural part, formal part. And then there are certain social dimensions. We know that same language is spoken in many ways in different societies. So look at it. A language, Assamese, is spoken in many ways in different parts of Assam. When you talk to Assamese speakers, they can identify a fellow speaker and locate them in terms of their geographical area. So speaker from southern part of Assam, let's say Kokrajhar, sounds very different from a speaker of Assamese from the northern part, let's say Haflong or Tinsukia or Dibrugarh. Same way, a Bengali speaker from northern part of Bengal speaks very different kind of Bengali from a Bengali speaker from the southern part of Bengal. So, places like Siliguri, New Jalpaiguri, these are the language Bengali is very different from how it is spoken in southern parts like Medinapur or for that matter Kolkata. So, same language, main point is same language is spoken different ways in different places. This is what we know as variation. What causes variation? How do we look at variation? Variation is an important reality of language. That is, no language is spoken same way in every place. Languages vary in terms of its geographical locations in different places. Still, they retain several parts together. So, what causes variation? So, these are the three different aspects of language: acquisition, structure and variation. In this course, in particular, we will look at acquisition and structure. And we will start looking at what is linguistics. We have talked about what is language, how do we learn language, how do we study language. These are the things that we will look at. So, now is the time for me to explain to you what is it that we mean by scientific and systematic. So, when we say systematic study or scientific study, they are the same. Basically, anything that is systematic is scientific. So, anything that we do in a systematic fashion is called scientific. This is how we need to know the word scientific. So, when we say linguistics is the scientific study of language, what we really mean is when we study language in a systematic way, that is called linguistics. So, allow me to spend a couple of minutes here to tell you what is systematic and different components of what makes study scientific. There are three steps in that. The primary step is called observation. How do we start looking at anything? How do we start working on anything? The first thing that happens to us is something catches our attention. So, we look at it and we try to observe. So, this first step is called observation. After this step, we start describing that particular phenomena or object, which is the second stage, that is the stage of description. And finally, we reach a stage where on the basis of this description, we can explain. So, that is called explanation. If you think about these three steps very carefully, that is observation, description and explanation, you will understand that you can only reach the explanatory adequacy level through observation and descriptions. It is very tough to describe things without observation, and it is very tough to explain without a description. So, in a normal sense, these are three different sequential stages, and once we go through these three stages in any kind of a study, that study becomes systematic and scientific. We are going to follow similar pattern in the study of language as well. So, this is how any study becomes scientific, and when we follow this pattern, the study of language it becomes systematic and is called scientific. The core areas of linguistics, as we know, are phonetics, morphology, syntax, semantics, and sociolinguistics. I want you to know that phonetics is about physical properties of sounds. That is, what's the place of articulation of a sound, what's the manner of articulation of a sound, what are the sounds, features of sounds, and so on. This is called the study of sounds that we do in phonetics. Phonology is study of abstract properties of sounds and their features. Morphology is the study of how sounds combine together. And syntax is the study of how different elements of language combine together, not just words. And semantics is about study of meaning. And sociolinguistics is the study of language in society. There are many other parts of the study, there are many other branches of study of language within the ambit of linguistics, but I am mentioning only these because they are relevant to the basics and core of the study of foundational properties of language. And like we started with what is language, as I have told you, it is an impressive and fascinating human capacity. Human languages are strikingly powerful and complex system. This comes from Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So when we start looking at language, we have to think about language as an object of scientific inquiry. Language, different aspects of language, that what is complex, what makes language a system, what are the underlying complexities of it, and so on. These things will become part of this course as we move forward in this course. I am looking forward to your participation at length. Please feel free to let us know what is not clear to you about what we have discussed so far and what is going to follow. We'll try to clarify each one of them in the forum, and we will also try to put those things in descriptions in new videos which will help us understand basic components of language science. Thank you.